Are houses in Nigeria better built than houses in the West? It is believed generally that houses in Nigeria are well built just because houses in Nigeria are made of concrete. During the California wildfire, people were comparing Nigerian houses to the American houses. The shocking thing is that these block houses that you see in Nigeria, if you take the same building abroad, it would not perform. It will actually crumble because of what you call freeze and a thaw. When the snow comes, the blocks absorb water, and when that water freezes inside the block shatters. In engineering design, there is a process for the selection of material. There are different factors that come into play. The first will be the strength of the material. Another reason would be the weather or the climate in the country. You also have skill availability and culture. You also have sustainability issues. You also have the availability of the material. You have cost issue, the time of construction. The first one I'll talk about is the strength of material. When selecting a material for a building project, the engineers go through the material with the most strength, or the material with the strength able to serve the use of the structure. In this case, I'll compare timber and concrete. Timber and concrete are excellent material. They have their advantages and disadvantages. You could mix concrete to different strengths, or even brick or blocks. You could actually get them to different strengths. If you want a concrete that is stronger, you can actually adjust the mix design and get a stronger concrete. It's the almost same case in timber as well. You can also equally glue timbers together. Even preferably, there's a timber we call glue lam timber. It's an engineering timber where different timbers are joined together, either in a factory or in the laboratory, to get the higher stiffness or thickness. So why then do people build in Nigeria with concrete and blocks and build abroad with timber? It is for various other reasons. As I've mentioned earlier, examples could be the weather. Timber offer high insulation to weather, whereas blocks and concrete in some cases can't really perform in a cold climate, especially block work. Another factor is the availability of material. In Nigeria here, concrete is in abundance, cement is in abundance. So that's why we typically mold blocks rather than going the hard way of sourcing timber and probably treating the timber or seasoning the timber. We go for blocks because they are readily and easily available. Also, talking about culture, it will be shocking to you that some engineers in Nigeria using steel, for example. We don't have a high capacity steel production in Nigeria. So most of the designs and construction are typically concrete, block, timber occasionally. So most engineers know how to design or build with concrete and bricks and block work rather than with timber and steel. So this has become a culture, and in the sense that most of the trades, they know how to work well with concrete frame construction rather than with timber construction. So this is same as well, or could be a factor for consideration in some countries, because if you don't have as much skilled people to carry out a particular type of construction, it might mean that most of the construction will follow same type of procedure or will use same materials, because the trades are familiar with using a particular material or the other. Cost is a huge factor when considering material selection in countries. Example, steel could be more expensive than timber, and this could vary across countries. Some countries have much availability of steel, and steel could be probably more cheaper if they haven't got maybe mineral resources for concrete or cement. So this is a huge factor. In Nigeria, we've got limestone in abundance, we've got cement in abundance. So typically, cement is fairly affordable as compared to steel. Another important factor you shouldn't forget is time of construction. As you know, concrete takes 28 days to achieve its full compressive strength. So in some cases, timber offer a faster option because you don't need to wait for the timber to cure or mature. That's why you see some high-rise building, they go for steel construction, because before you wait for concrete to cure and repeat the process, with steel construction, you just have your design, and once you come to site, it's more like you are erecting the structure immediately without any delay. That's why in some cases you see some projects, within months, they are done with a high-rise building of about 10 stories. This has been determined in the design. Maybe they are working with a very tight schedule, or the developers have a very tight, or the contractor has a very tight time frame. So he works with what is feasible. So these are actually why in some countries you see them, or in some projects you see them work with a particular material or the other. So when designing or when constructing, you have the knowledge of what type of material to use. Traditionally, in construction, we have 3 traditional materials that are used, which is concrete, timber, and steel. And most design codes are written around these principal materials. Another thing they consider in selection of material is sustainability. As you know, countries abroad, most of them have gone past failure consideration. They now consider sustainability. They want to go green. And you would agree with me, materials like timber are easily reusable and they are much more sustainable than concrete. So this knowledge will tell you that Nigerian buildings are not necessarily built better or more stronger than the counterparts abroad in America or in the UK. A concrete building can equally be built very badly. As you know, some concrete buildings, even with the high density of concrete, some concrete buildings collapse and fail. Whereas in countries abroad, you rarely hear of buildings or timber buildings failing. They both have their disadvantages and advantages. Materials, example, concrete is very dense. It offers, noise restriction when you compare it with timber, because timber has a high strength to weight ratio. What I mean by this is that for a small timber, you can still have a comparable high strength. So this makes it vulnerable to vibrations and noise. So this is one of the downsides to timber. We also have the advantages of, fire resistance for concrete as compared to timber. And there are also many other considerations, advantages and disadvantages. Even things like fire or vibration, you can still counteract that in timber buildings by having maybe padded walls or walls with insulation and acoustic resistant material. It's all about design, consideration and attention to detail. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you found value in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.